And I decided to sort of categorize China as such a complicated place as China. I decided to try to categorize it into 4 themes. And here are the themes, and I want to introduce them to you very quickly. One is what I call open China. I think many people would sometimes say, well, you know, is China open? Is it closed? Do they welcome foreigners? Do they whatever, right? You know, Google is not happy. Google left China. You know, is China open? But, you know, as I mentioned early on, you know, if you take a long view in China, over at least in the last couple of decades, and we look at how Chinese government liberalizes its industries gradually and one by one for foreign participation. In fact, I see China as an open China and continues to open up to the rest of the world. In a way, you know, compared to Korea and Japan, China has been a much more open economy. Not everything is entirely open, but many industries are fairly open. And in particular, as I mentioned, about the large-scale urbanization that's been going on, that we're seeing a development of a new urban middle class that is becoming more global consumers. But then, you know, in order to understand the new consumers, which is fairly diverse and very complicated, people need to really deeply understand the demand patterns of these Chinese consumers. So number one is open China. Number two is entrepreneurial China. Entrepreneurial China means, as many of you know, actually Chinese has been entrepreneurs, very good businessmen, in particular very good traders historically. For thousands of years, Chinese have been trading with a lot of foreigners, and even over 1,000 years ago, the Chinese have been trading with the likes of the Arabs, the Persians, the Turks. We also fought with the Turks quite a bit, of course, but we also traded with them, and of course with quite a few Europeans, in particular Italians as well. And Chinese just good business people. But of course, with the communists coming in with the People's Republic setting up in 1949, entrepreneurism in China was totally suppressed. Everything was under the planned economy, right? But then with the economic reform started by Deng Xiaoping, he began to experiment the allowance of entrepreneurism back to the Chinese. And of course, over the last 3 decades, in particular in the last 2 decades, entrepreneurism really have taken roots in China. That many of the Chinese have really took advantage of the allowance of the private economy, and that they become bona fide entrepreneurs in their own right. Many of the Chinese people, many of the most successful Chinese companies today are privately owned. And they're led by visionary and ambitious and entrepreneurs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But entrepreneurial China is a major force that's been driving the development of the Chinese economy over the last couple of decades. And I personally believe that this will continue to become a major force in driving the Chinese economy in the next decade or more.